You know, sometimes we study a thinker who isn't just profound, but whose life is, well, it's a complete paradox. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're jumping into the 3rd century of the Roman Empire to unpack the founder of Neoplatonism, Plotinus. Our mission today is a deep dive into the source material, and that's primarily the work of his student Porphyry. We want to understand the man who defined Western spirituality for centuries, giving us this concept of the one. Yet at the same time, he lived a life that was just, absolutely riddled with bizarre and compelling contradictions.
Porphyry is completely essential here. You have to remember, Plotinus's 54 writings were kind of a scribal mess. He had zero interest in form. So Porphyry took on this massive task after he died, structuring them into 6 groups of 9. And that's what we now call the Enneads.
And Porphyry's introduction, On the Life of Plotinus, that's where you find this incredible duality. Here's this ascetic who wants total separation from the body, yet he signs up for military duty. Cerebral sage who becomes the legally appointed guardian for wealthy Roman orphans. It just doesn't seem to fit. So let's start at the beginning, or I guess the lack of a beginning.
Exactly.
He was born around 205 CE, maybe in Lycopolis, Egypt, but he went to these extraordinary lengths to just erase his own origins. He never, ever talked about his parents, his homeland, not even his birthday.
Yeah, it wasn't just, avoidance. It was kind of philosophical erasure. He saw the physical world as a mistake, a place of shame. So if he had to exist, he preferred it to be seen as this spontaneous intellectual event, not the result of some messy earthly thing.
Right, he was celebrating the mind, not the matter.
The contrast is so sharp, he refuses to celebrate his own birthday. But he hosts these lavish feasts every single year for the birthdays of Plato and Socrates.
Which leads us directly to one of the most, well, frankly, one of the oddest anecdotes that Porphyry gives us about his early life.
Ah, yes. The fact that Plotinus nursed until he was 8 years old.
8?
It's often looked at psychologically, but I think Porphyry uses it to show Plotinus' deep, almost embarrassing struggle with the physical. He was still, opening his nurse's tunic until someone shamed him out of it. It's like a metaphor for the philosopher fighting against the very bodily needs his philosophy was built to transcend.
It paints a picture of just intense internal conflict. And you can see he was desperately searching for some kind of liberation, which is probably why he didn't find a teacher until he was nearly 30. He'd visit these prominent scholars in Alexandria and just leave, as Porphyry says, with shame and sorrow, because they couldn't give him what he was looking for.
Not until a friend told him to go see the teacher, Ammonius Saccas. Plotinus heard one lecture and declared, "This is the one I was looking for."
That must have been a seismic moment for him.
Oh, absolutely. It was the spark. He studied with Ammonius for 11 years. And while the goal was always spiritual, his commitment to experiential learning was incredible. Think about it. How do you study Persian and Indian philosophy when you live in Alexandria?
You join the army.
You join the army. At age 39, he enlists in Emperor Gordian III's disastrous campaign against Persia, just to get access to those traditions.
The ultimate cerebral recluse signing up for the infantry, it's almost unimaginable. He risked his life, had to flee to Antioch when the campaign failed, all for sources he couldn't get from a book.
And his real-world involvement didn't stop there. He gets to Rome around 244 CE, starts teaching, and becomes, the most successful philosopher in the empire.
He even gets the favor of Emperor Gallienus and his wife, Salanina. And this patronage, this is where it gets really wild, it almost resulted in the founding of Claytonopolis.
This is one of the greatest what-ifs in history. Plotinus convinces them to give him land in Campania near Rome. He's going to build a city governed entirely by Plato's laws.
The Republic, but for real.
The Republic made real. Imagine the audacity. He was going to live there with his students, this self-sufficient philosophical commune, totally separate from the corrupting influence of the city. But the imperial advisors got in the way. They were jealous, or maybe they just feared losing influence, and they convinced Gallienus to pull the plug. The whole experiment was sabotaged before it even started.
A classic collision of the sublime idea and, well, messy human politics.
Absolutely. And speaking of messy realities, let's look at the atmosphere when he was studying with Ammonius Saccas. We often forget the context.
Who else was in the room?
The Christian thinker Origen was in the classroom right there with Plotinus.
Wow.
And this highlights a crucial point about the 3rd century. Philosophy wasn't just contemplation. It was a weapon. It was the sharpest intellectual weapon available. You had Christians, pagan Neoplatonist Jewish thinkers, all using the exact same Platonic and Aristotelian sources to fight each other, to justify their own theology.
So knowing these sources meant you were armed for battle.
Precisely. Which leads to that famous pact of silence between the students, Plotinus, Herennius, and Origen. They agreed not to reveal Ammonius's teachings. They were considered too profound, too powerful for the public.
But someone always breaks the pact.
Herennius broke it first. Origen followed right after. But Plotinus, with this just characteristic discipline, he kept his promise for 10 years. 10 years. He only taught the doctrines orally, in secret, to his students in Rome.
That kind of intellectual discipline is astounding. And when he finally did start writing, around age 50, his whole process just perfectly reflected his philosophy.
It was almost a spiritual act, not a physical one.
It sounds totally chaotic, to be honest. Porphyry says he would think out the entire argument in his head first.
The whole thing.
And then just write it down in one go, as if you were, quote, copying from a ready book. And he'd be doing this while chatting with people.
He was just completely absorbed in the idea. And the physical form suffered terribly for it. His eyesight was poor, so he never reread his work. He didn't care about spelling, punctuation.
He didn't even separate the words.
Not at all. It was just a continuous stream of text, scriptio continua. This wasn't laziness. It was proof that the idea was everything and the physical medium was just a regrettable, messy necessity.
So Porphyry wasn't just an editor, he was a decipherer. He was taking this massive, unpunctuated run-on sentence and turning it into a philosophical masterpiece. He literally gave form to the formless.
Okay, let's transition to the core of that thought, the architecture of Neoplatonism itself. The whole project was, hugely ambitious.
Oh, massively. He's trying to unify Plato's idealism with Aristotle's logic, all under a single principle of spiritual unity.
And this is his enduring contribution, right? He basically moves philosophy into the realm of theology.
He does. But his idea of God isn't a personal, transcendent figure like the Christian Father God. Instead, he defines divinity as the One.
The One.
It's radically simple, utterly unitary, and completely impersonal. It's beyond existence. It's beyond thought. This is what's called apophatic theology. You define God by what it is not. So if the One is so simple and so remote, how does it produce this vast, complex cosmos we live in? It's not like an act of creation, like in the Bible.
No, not a willful act at all. It's a necessary, non-diminishing overflow. Plotinus calls it emanation, a flowing forth.
Like light from the sun?
Exactly like light from the sun or a spring welling up. The light just flows, it can't help it. But the source itself isn't depleted. The world is just the divine in various states of reduced intensity.
So the further away you get, the dimmer the light, which leads to a kind of hierarchy of being.
Precisely. You have three primary realities, or hypostases, that flow from the One. The first is Nous, or the Intellect. This is the direct image of the One. And critically, this is where Plotinus puts Plato's forms.
Ah, okay. So instead of the forms existing somewhere out there on their own, he puts them inside the intellect.
Yes. The intellect is the realm of pure thought, where all the eternal forms reside. And it's always gazing back at the One, trying to comprehend its source. That gazing back creates the second hypostasis, the world soul, which is the image of the intellect. The world soul is the intermediary. It organizes matter and gives life and form to the material cosmos.
And the cosmos is the third and lowest level.
The lowest level of emanation.
I see now how he unified the two Greek giants. He takes Plato's forms, puts them in the intellect, and then uses Aristotle's logic to explain how the world's soul organizes everything.
He used Aristotelian logic to structure Platonic idealism. It's brilliant.
Which brings us to his notoriously severe view on matter. If the emanations get dimmer as they flow outward, the furthest point from the One must be ultimate darkness.
It's the ultimate lack of perfection. For Plotinus, matter isn't something created by the One. It's the source of evil. It's defined entirely by its privation, its lack of divine light and form.
And he had that incredibly harsh phrase for it.
He called matter an adorned corpse. It might look beautiful to our senses, it's adorned. But underneath, it's fundamentally dead, dark, and lacking any true being. It's the prison that traps the soul.
So if we are trapped inside this adorned corpse, the ultimate goal must be to reverse that whole process, to move back up the hierarchy to where we came from.
And that requires deep, painful detachment. The soul has to focus on itself. It has to stop looking outward at the sensory world, which he saw as evil and ugly, and look inward, where it can find its connection to the world's soul.
And that prescription is reflected directly in his lifestyle. It's why he lived so simply, why he avoided public baths, why he often just refused to eat, subsisting on, as Porphyry said, mere concentration of mind.
And that beautiful story about the portrait, it's the perfect illustration of his detachment. When a friend wanted him to sit for a portrait, he just scoffed.
He said, "Is this likeness nature has dressed me in not enough, that you want to make a likeness of a likeness?"
Exactly. Rejecting the material copy of an already flawed material body.
And yet, for a man so dedicated to detachment, he was remarkably engaged with the practical, messy, human world of Rome. He didn't run from responsibility, he embraced it.
He was a highly sought-after trustee. Wealthy Romans, on their deathbeds, would entrust their entire estates and the welfare of their children, the very bodies and material things he philosophically despised, to Plotinus's guardianship.
Think about that contradiction. He's holding philosophy classes while dealing with estate managers and legal filings, making sure the orphan's money is invested correctly. He's handling the most mundane bureaucracy without ever losing focus.
And this practical side was mixed with this almost supernatural insight. He successfully pointed out this specific slave who stole a necklace from a widow in his house.
And his foresight could be grim. He predicted one of his students, Polemon, would die young, and he did.
But maybe the most powerful example of that foresight involves Porphyry himself. Porphyry was suffering from what they called melancholic illness and was planning to take his own life.
And Plotinus just knew.
He knew.
Yeah.
Not because Porphyry told him, but just by observing him. He showed up unexpectedly and told Porphyry that his desire to die wasn't a philosophical conclusion, it was just sickness. He insisted he leave Rome immediately.
And he did. He went to Sicily, and it saved his life. That is a teacher intervening in the real world in the most profound way.
What an incredible legacy. The founder of a philosophy that demanded this rigorous spiritual ascent lived by a man who was deeply entangled in the messy fabric of Rome. He navigated that duality right to the very end.
His last words, spoken to his student Eustochius, just summarize his entire life's work.
As his body was failing, he reportedly said he was attempting to fuse the divine in him with the divine in the universe.
And just as he died, Porphyry gives us this one last strange symbolic detail. A snake slipped out from under the bed where Plotinus lay and vanished into a crack in the wall.
An omen, hallucination, who knows? But it's a final, messy, physical detail accompanying the spiritual ascent he had sought for 66 years.
So here's something to think about. If Plotinus spent his entire life arguing that the material world, the body, is fundamentally an adorned corpse, the source of all evil, what does it truly mean that his grand, successful return journey to the One only began at a precise moment of his death? Does his life imply that philosophy can prepare the soul, but only the absolute failure of the physical form allows for ultimate freedom? That's something to contemplate until the next time we dive deep.
Join us and keep your curiosity well fed. Who knows? The next video might be exactly what you didn't know you needed.